Coming up on Tech News today, Google fires people and tries to hurt pirates while App.net rolls in your money. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, August 13th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by GoToMeeting with HD Faces by Citrix. It just takes a webcam and a click to turn your online meeting into high-definition video conferencing. Meet with colleagues anywhere in the world, even from an iPad. Sign up for your 30-day free trial today. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use promo code TNT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm OMG Chad.
And
or Alex Gumpel.
Jason Howell is on his way back from vacation. He'll be with us tomorrow. This is still a show where we keep you up to date on the top tech stories of the day, starting with the top 10 in the news views. Google announced in a blog post it will now take into account the number of valid copyright infringement notices it has received when determining the rank of websites in search results. Google has been criticized by many entertainment industry groups for not doing enough to reduce infringement.
Over the weekend, the New York Times reported sweeping cuts at Motorola Mobility to the tune of 4,000 jobs, one-third of them in the U.S. Google has today confirmed its plans in a regulatory filing with the SEC, alerting investors that it expects to lose up to $275 million during the transition. Google says it will provide generous severance packages as well as outplacement services to help employees find new jobs. Motorola plans to leave unprofitable markets, stop making low-end devices, and focus on a few cell phone instead of dozens. This seems to be a popular trend.
Profitability, what an idea.
Yeah.
Because you can't get enough of it, here's an update on the Apple versus Samsung case of awesomeness. Judge Lucy Koh has barred Samsung designer Young Shin Park from testifying. Park is one of the inventors of the Samsung F700, a black touchscreen phone with rounded corners. Apple argued that the F700 is not on the list of accused phones, and therefore Park's testimony was not relevant.
Bowl of water. It's a bowl of water. We all know they're spying on you, but now we know how. WikiLeaks has released emails allegedly obtained by hackers who penetrated Stratfor last December that indicate a company called Abraxas in Virginia has created a sophisticated surveillance system called Trapwire used by several governments. The system engages in data mining and pattern recognition, and Abraxas claims it is more accurate than facial recognition.
Dalton Caldwell's Twitter competitor App.net, designed to cater to users, not advertisers, achieved its $500,000 funding goal with almost 2 days left on the clock. Though the software is still in alpha, over 10,000 backers have put down $50 for an annual membership, up to $1,000 for support. The company will now start working on its terms of service, letting users offer feedback and discover new features. And if you want to claim your preferred username, you've got about 15 hours left. After that, it's first come, first serve.
You know what we don't cover much of on this show?
What?
Printers.
Yeah,
Let's
more
fix
printers.
that right now.
Printers and PDAs.
Print it up, Iyaz.
Researchers at the Agency for Science, Technology, and Research have used a technique to print a color image at 100,000 dots per inch. Each dot is made up of 4 posts, which are capped with silver and gold nanodiscs. The materials used to print make the printouts durable. They'll never fade. Oh, and that printing process, it's patent pending.
Feeling the pressure of the Google Nexus 7 and a rumored Kindle refresh, Barnes & Noble cut the price of its 7-inch Nook Color and Nook Tablet devices. The Nook Color now costs $150. An 8-gigabyte Nook tablet runs $180, and a 16-gig Nook tablet goes for $200 now.
Samsung's new Series 7 gaming laptop is a dream for PC gamers who like a little 3D in their lives. The 17.3-inch PC has a super bright LED display, and 3D movie fans can also enjoy that display via the Blu-ray drive. Also inside is an AMD Radeon HD 7870M graphics card Samsung says is for games and taps into DirectX version 11.1. And if you like your things bright and sunny, at least your gaming bright and sunny, you might like the new yellow exterior as a brighter alternative to the current dark finish. A 128-gigabyte solid-state drive supplements the standard 1 terabyte hard disk and offers faster boot up and dual storage.
uTorrent, the popular client owned by BitTorrent, has more than 125 million active users per month and generates $15 to $20 million in annual revenue. But that's not enough. BitTorrent Inc. will soon add sponsored torrents in a featured spot at the top of the list of downloads. BitTorrent intends to make the featured spot contain content users would be interested in.
The Wall Street Journal reports that Google is picking up travel brand Frommer's. The deal isn't official, but the Journal says the deal will close shortly. Google is expected to use Frommer's data along with its Zagat data to put together better local reviews and cue all the antitrust concerns in 3, 2,
1. Bang! This episode of Tech News Today, as I mentioned, brought to you by Citrix. This summer, you and your team will probably be working from different locations. And just because you're away from the office doesn't mean your business stops, even in August, even in Europe. That's why we recommend GoToMeeting. You can meet online with clients and colleagues from anywhere with HD Faces. GoToMeeting by Citrix allows you to collaborate on files and plans online. And with HD Faces, all you need is a webcam to turn your online meetings into a group. That could mean a laptop with a webcam, could mean an iPad, because you can use your iPad. You can be in the airport, between planes, and taking part in a meeting where you see people, you see their reactions, you see their nonverbal communication. It's essential to making sure that you're understood and to understanding what other people are saying. You can connect from wherever you are, the vacation, the beach, park with the kids, squeeze that stuff in there if you need to. Hope you don't need to, but if you do, this is going to help you out. We love GoToMeeting. We use it all the time. It really does help to see the expressions on people's face, to be able to collaborate during the meeting. So work smarter this summer with GoToMeeting with HD Faces. Our listeners can try it free for 30 days. Don't wait for the special offer. Visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code TNT. Be sure to use that promo code TNT. And we thank Citrix and HD Faces for their support of Tech News Today. All right, let's bring in Dan Patterson from CoPoint joining us today to discuss the stories in the tech news. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Things are going great for you over to CoPoint. You got an election to cover finally.
I do have an election to cover. It's, honestly, I've never been busier and never been happier, especially with anyone who knows me knows that I'm nonpartisan and all politics is purple, but we have some conventions coming up and we get to use fun technology in the conventions this year.
I can't wait to see what you guys do with it. That's they start in 10 days or so?
Yeah, 10 days.
Nice. Well, let's start off with some, unfortunately, not very fun news. Google laying people off.
Yeah, so Google bought Motorola Mobility, and we all said, well, obviously those 17,000 patents are looking pretty attractive. But then Motorola has a hardware business that's probably going to be attractive to Google. What will they do with it? Well, it looks like we're at least moving in the direction that Google has been planning. 30% of 4,000 jobs lost are in the U.S., the rest of them in other parts of the world. The company is going to consolidate or close in markets that they deem unprofitable. Last year, Motorola introduced 27 devices. They don't want to do that again this year. They want to focus on better devices, longer battery life, better screens. They're doing a lot of R&D, but that's pretty much the focus, is that they don't want to spread themselves too thin. Shrinking operations in both Asia and India, and Motorola wants to center R&D to Chicago, Sunnyvale, and Beijing. Those are sort of their three biggest hubs, so 2/3 of those being in the U.S. New technology coming from a group called Advanced Technology and Projects. This is headed up by Regina Dugan, formerly of DARPA. What's interesting is Dugan is hiring metal scientists, acoustics engineers, AI experts. And the jobs, at least as far as what she used to do at DARPA, should only last about 2 years. In fact, at DARPA, people wear name tags with their expiration date of when they're going to leave.
Before date?
Yeah, and she says that this helps a sense of urgency and impatience and kind of gets people to be like, I really want to achieve something in the 2 years I'm here before I'm out the door and I'm doing something else. Google also has a program right now that engineers can choose to participate in where they work for Motorola for about 2 years. So it sounds like, I mean, this is not just a, hey, we don't know what to do with this big alien company. We're going to lay a bunch of people off and I don't know, maybe we'll just spend less money. It seems like Motorola feels that they've got to consolidate the business. I mean, Google and Motorola both, of course. They've still got a hardware business. They've still got the set-top TV business. but they're making a bunch of devices that aren't competing, certainly not with Samsung or Apple, but even, I mean, they're really not a dominant player at all. And the question at this point is, does Motorola end up getting special privileges with Android that other companies won't get? Because Google has always said, no, that won't be an issue at all. But we still don't know, and things are changing internally.
Well, and I want to know how much of this direction is coming from Google. We know Dennis Woodside from Google took over as CEO of Motorola Mobility. So some of the Google DNA is there for sure. But Google has said over and over, we're going to run this business at arm's length. So whatever Dennis wants to do, Dennis does. And this could be the kind of thing that they might have done anyway, even if Google hadn't bought them. They would have had to refocus and cut costs, maybe not in exactly the same way, different CEO. But I'm not sure how much of this, it's always hard to tell with Motorola how much of this really is Google saying, we want you to do this, and how much of it is Motorola internally saying, this is what we need to do to fix our business, because Motorola has been struggling.
I mean, there were rumors that Google is going to get rid of the set-top box division of Motorola. I think it's called Motorola Home. This just sounds like Google's setting it up to flip Motorola. They're like, we don't need the hardware business. We can't sell this if it's unprofitable. We have to make it appear profitable. We need to put Motorola in a direction that we can go, somebody else needs to buy this from us, because their current situation with Motorola and Android makes it really difficult for them to work together in a way that you could see Apple working with by itself, or Microsoft, by itself. You can't have this vertical integrated situation, because Google has said we're not playing favorites. And if they have Motorola right there, a hardware arm that they have to always keep away, it seems like it's doing themselves a disservice. So I'm thinking this is just to clean up Motorola to sell it to somebody else.
Dan, you think that's what it is? A polish job? They're putting in new countertops, making it look all sparkly?
I think the consolidation and reduction of inefficient sectors in Motorola's business was an inevitability almost since the moment Google purchased them. And while Google did say, we'll keep this business at arm's length, I think that is, if that was a sincere comment, it must have been a naive comment. This is an asset the company owns and controls. Surely they're not going to compete with the iPhone tomorrow, but it's ridiculous for them to make such an acquisition and not to streamline that business with the aims of making a hardcore iPhone competitor in 3, 5, 10 years. I mean, their own investors wouldn't allow them to make a purchase like this if they didn't intend on, streamlining it and using it efficiently.
But it doesn't sound like they're focusing on phones, from what you said, Sarah.
Well, it sounds like they're focusing on a lot of these, almost these underground projects that Google is famous for. Not that we've got some information on the kind of technology that's going on here. But yeah, I mean, we've got scientists and engineers and people thinking outside of the device box. I mean, it sounds to me like Google is going to use Motorola as its, let's just try stuff. Let's make something fantastic that doesn't work like everything else on the market, and then we'll stand out.
It almost makes it sound like Motorola is like the what's that, like a community college. Like, you can be here, you get your associates, and then you can come up to us. Or it's the minor leagues. It's like, if they're going to run it like a startup, and they're not afraid to fail. I mean, it really, I get the idea of having a nimble company, but this is Motorola. This isn't some like, oh, it's, we bought 20 people. So no, we bought a monstrously large company that isn't very profitable.
Well, and they just slashed a big part of it.
Yeah, it's smaller than it was.
They're trying to get it to 20.
Than it was.
I look at this, and I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but an opportunity here that Google may or may not be thinking about is the idea of creating reference designs that they license. So if you turn Motorola into an R&D company, you say, look, we know how to do R&D. We've got this Project X. Sergey's great at this. Dennis, go down to Motorola, make them an R&D company. And then the way we monetize that is we take what we learned from Android in licensing out software, and we do it with hardware. Am I crazy? Could that work?
No, they have a good history of doing that. I mean, they have kind of done, in YouTube's early days, they used it in a similar manner, and they kind of did that with Android in the early days. So it would make sense that Motorola ends up being the corpse that Google kind of siphons talent from and then leaves them to make stuff that they can pull off to the main body.
And then Motorola isn't seen as competing with Samsung and Nokia and HTC and any of the partners that, well, forget Nokia, but any of the partners that Google might have for Android. It's actually seen as helping them. It's like, hey, here's a research and design arm that you can take and modify and turn into your own devices. I don't know if the Samsungs of the world want that, though. They want to research and develop their own stuff. So Google in the news a lot today. Also in the news for unveiling a new pirate penalty. If you are wearing an eye patch and have a parrot,
Pittsburgh,
you will be lowered in the search ranks. Yes, if you play for the Pittsburgh Pirates, you're on top of the world because your team's doing well. Right. No, a new signal will be added to the Google algorithm, valid copyright removal notices, or at least what Google considers valid. These aren't court tested. This is just Google's opinion. We think these are valid. We're going to include them in the algorithm, and they may lower sites in search results. Of course, Danny Sullivan over at Google, Search Engine Land was all over this right away, saying, wait a minute, you're treating YouTube the same as everything else. YouTube is going to plummet. They get tons of copyright notices, although those notices go to YouTube. Are you going to count the ones that are submitted through the YouTube tool or just the ones submitted through Google? Google told Search Engine Land, we're treating YouTube like any other site in search rankings. That said, we don't expect this change to demote results for popular user-generated content sites.
But
how does that happen?
Yeah, how can you have both?
So Danny Sullivan did some more pressing, finally got Google to tell Search Engine Land that the algorithm will automatically assess various factors or signals to decide if a site with a high number of copyright infringement notices against it should also face a penalty. Now, they weren't specific, and they never are. It's a proprietary algorithm. I understand that the line they're trying to walk here, but they're saying we will account for this. We're trying to mollify the MPAA and the RIAA by accounting for this and saying, hey, we're not trying to encourage infringement, but we also will take into account other things, and things like the reputation. PageRank is famous for being built on reputation. If your site has a good reputation, it rises in the search rankings. They may look at other reputation signals and say, well, wait a minute. If the only negative on this site is the fact that it has high infringement notices, it may just be because it's popular. And that's certainly the case in things like YouTube and Twitter, et cetera.
Well, I've been looking at this at the actual blog post, and I'm kind of curious about what determines a valid copyright removal notice, because that's what I don't think Google's making that assessment. I think it's if it's are they getting, is somebody actually using the right channels to say this content is not?
Well, when that transparency report first came out, Google described what they considered a valid copyright notice was something where it fit all of the parameters that they have put in place for the notification, and it didn't seem to be sort of, I can't remember the word for it, but they had a word for frivolous, I think. It didn't seem to be frivolous, and it didn't have fair use. And there's a counter notice situation in place, but should Google be deciding what is valid copyright infringement?
Well, and is there a whitelist for companies that Google has said?
Google has said no, there is no whitelist. It's all in the algorithm. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest concern, right?
Yeah.
Is whether we think it's right or not, Google has been and will continue to be an arbiter of the content you see. Now, whether to me, this seems like something that, Google being a company that loves algorithms, they love math, and they certainly love cleaning house. And in this past 18 months or so, they've been cleaning house. And maybe this is one of the things where they're like, well, we could employ 4 more lawyers to do this, or we could write an algorithm. And if you think like somebody who creates algorithms, you say, well, let's see how effective we can be by making an algorithm. This could be not even that high of a priority in Google, but simply something where they say, look, let's try to hire fewer lawyers and more engineers.
I mean,
not that there's anything wrong with lawyers.
Let's be clear. Google has the right to do this. There's nothing about law here. If Google wants to tweak its algorithm one way or another, I believe they should be allowed to do it.
And that is the most interesting question, right? Whether this is a house cleaning thing or not. What's more interesting is the position Google is in to determine, and they're strengthening as over time increases, right?
There's an article up on informationweek.com that puts forth one of the problems with this, which is not that Google doesn't have a good policy, but that Google already has a policy to remove illegal sites. So why add an extra policy for copyright infringement? If it's an illegal or damaging site, it should fall under that existing policy where it's taken down by law enforcement. This guy at Thomas Claiborne is suggesting Google shouldn't try to act like the police. They should merely respond to the police. Why go to special efforts to combat copyright infringement over other things?
Doesn't this seem like a way to just free up actual human power? I know that behind the scenes at Google, there are people who have to process these kinds of complaints and takedown notices all day, every day. And if something is offloaded that much more onto an algorithm, even if it doesn't work well, they can free up those people to do other things.
They still have to process the takedown notices, though, because it's only a valid piece of infringement that goes into the algorithm.
Yeah.
So it might save them removing links because they don't surface as high, and maybe it would reduce the load of people calling for links to be removed, but I doubt it. I think if the site exists, they're going to have it removed.
I don't really see another point of Google getting too more entrenched into something like this.
What they want to do is make the MPAA stop saying Google encourages infringement.
Well, yeah, you call it out particularly. You go, we're going to have measures for copyright. I'm sure there's lots of different things that Google does to their algorithm that they don't publish necessarily like this. It definitely sounds like something to placate content partners. I mean, YouTube's trying like crazy to be. I mean, remember, it used to be like this haven for infringement. Now it's a legitimate site that rents movies and all kinds of things with lots of different content partners. And if this is the kind of PR they need to do to say, hey guys, shut up, we're fine, that's what they're going to do, because they need to have more and more content, because they're competing in a lot of different arenas and they need to have content.
I'm curious how long it's going to be before a website gets targeted for search demotion and claims that it's not fair. That it actually has a very good case of fair use, or et cetera, et cetera. We know that the DMCA, which is essentially the model Google's following here with the takedown notices, is not exactly accurate. Valuable and actually totally legal sites and content get taken down all the time through the DMCA with valid notices. Right? When Universal had the episode of Tech News Today taken down on YouTube, that was not an invalid notice. It was valid for them to put that notice in. Right? And so should we now be targeted as, and have our search engine ranking lowered because of that? Or should YouTube, because that's where the infringement was, and Google saying, no, we're going to have the algorithm correct for that. But it's a problem with the underlying assumption that we know copyright infringement when we see it. We don't. We make mistakes all the time. And even if we know it 99% of the time, it's those 1% that's going to cause a problem. Appnet is trying to change the way we do social networking, and they got their money.
They did. We talked last week about whether or not they would hit a goal. It was iffy. They were just over halfway there with just a few days to go before the weekend. Over the weekend, they did surpass 500,000, and I just refreshed my page, and as of the live recording, they are now at 714,650. And it's going up more than ever. I mean, this morning it was in the 600,000 still. So we've got 14 hours left. And sure enough, Dalton Caldwell had said in a blog post last week, I believe we'll hit the numbers. I know people at Kickstarter. I know how these things work. Momentum usually happens right at the beginning and right at the end. And he's absolutely right. This is not an official Kickstarter project. It's a Kickstarter-like donation effort that App.net built themselves. So there's been quite a bit of progress, actually. This is still an alpha project, and Caldwell is keeping folks updated on his personal blog to that end. They have started collecting third-party apps, though, in a directory on GitHub. I've noticed that all mobile development, at least this morning, is done in iOS. You see a lot of notes of Android stuff coming soon, but we got like 7 different iOS third-party apps. And they're drafting a terms of service. Caldwell says he plans to host that on GitHub. He wants feedback. He wants this to be, as much as a group effort as possible. Obviously, people are buying into this idea. He also did mention, and this is actually something that I think is driving a lot of these last-minute $50 donations, is that while we're still in the backing period, so when we're still in the period of raising money, which again is coming to a close today, you can claim your account name. So, if I wanted to be Sarah on Twitter rather than Sarah Lane, this would be my option if no one else has claimed that yet on app.net. Once that's over, you can't just claim your username because there won't be any claiming, even though you've signed up for something before the official release, because again, they're still in alpha. Now, I know a few people yesterday who were like, $50, I'll do it.
Why not?
Why? It's just $50. And what if this thing takes off and I really want that username, or at least the username that I already have on Twitter, because life is different now and usernames go quickly. So I think that is accounting for some of this last minute land grab kind of thing. Caldwell also is trying to be as transparent as possible about the donation process. He says they're using a company called Stripe. to power the billing aspects of their donations. He says in the future, he's going to ask an impartial third party to basically look at the data and verify publicly that everything as far as money going on behind the scenes at app.net is honest.
And
There's
basically,
no cooking the books. There's no inflation of numbers.
Kickstarter wouldn't let him do this because it doesn't match their terms of what makes a Kickstarter project.
Yeah.
Same way that the TWiT Studio didn't match the terms, which is why they couldn't do the TWiT Studio on Kickstarter. So that's why he's doing it himself. If you're wondering about that.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's Kickstarter has just.
That's
certain
kind of a narrow
requirements.
definition.
Yeah, so there are quite a few. That's why you have Kickstarter competitor services that work better for other people. It's not really anything against Kickstarter. It just wasn't a match made in heaven. But I'm interested. There were a lot of people who said this is a pie in the sky idea, a utopian society that's like Twitter but doesn't rely on advertising dollars. Sounds really good, but you'll never make it. Well, there's a lot to prove yet. And Dalton Caldwell, even though this is his brainchild, his baby, says there is a lot to do. We don't actually have a product that I'm proud of yet. We're working toward it. We need your help. But they are on their way. I don't know. What do you guys think? I have not signed on to this project yet.
I have.
Okay.
Just because I wanted to be in the inside of it.
Because
to see
you
how it works.
wanted that username.
Well, I didn't think anybody's gonna take my username because I didn't take John Merritt. I took Ace the Tech.
Right.
But
well, keeping it consistent.
But I want to see how it works because this fascinates me. And as we talked about last week, there have been lots of open social networks that are attempting to get started.
Right.
And they haven't caught fire yet. And Dalton's saying, well, if that's not going to work, and if advertising supported has problems that I don't like, especially for app developers who want to develop on the platform and then worry about getting shut down later, having ads forced into their apps, et cetera, what if we did an ad-free version where we get people to pay? I think it's intriguing. I'm not sure how many people end up paying, but then I also know that one of the complaints of new social networks is they're always good until the masses come, and then they ruin it for everyone, right? It's like I liked that band back before it was cool. Now they're not cool anymore. So is this going to avoid that problem? Will they say, look, we'll get enough people to join that we'll be able to fund ourselves, but we'll never get ruined? It appeal to snobbery, but we will always be good because you'll have to pay $50, so you'll have to really want to be here. It keeps the trolls down.
Well, the thing I like, okay, so if you compare the two if you're comparing app.net to Twitter specifically, I mean, Twitter is fun and you can say silly stuff, you add pictures and you're linking to Instagram, but Twitter for me is a really, really good tool for my job, for Tech News Today and the other stuff that we do on TWiT because it's my number one information source, my news source. Would companies be willing to buy their employees a $50 annual membership so that you could be contributing to the hive mind on Appnet? Because if I don't have things like that, I mean, if I can't follow Dan Patterson and get his updates on what's going on politically, then app.net is less effective and useful to me than Twitter. And Twitter's free.
The value proposition for a user of general social media is that, A, the quality of the network will be high because my friends are there, which is Facebook's proposition. Or B, the quality of the network will be high because of exactly what Sarah is articulating, that like there's so many people using the service, it's full of the news that I want no matter who I am. The value proposition of Path is that because it is exclusive, I can get really good information, even though it may or may not be my friend. It's like a couple degrees of separation. Of app.net, it may be that like LinkedIn or like Path, it's higher quality individuals. There's no guarantee of that. And the technology itself is not interesting at all. It's, I mean, no knocks on these guys, but it's not hard to pop up a Ruby Twitter-like site very easily. The really interesting thing about this is the process by which they're gathering money, building a community, and raising, whether it's a business model of some sort. The process is interesting. The product is not. However, that may not be. I'm not hopeful about the quality of the community simply because the product really at the end of the day is like, I don't want more social media. I don't.
I'm looking at the $50 thing a year, and I'm looking at I looked at alpha.app.net this morning, and a lot of the posts are about itself. So it's kind of like the early days of Google Plus, where it's like, oh, great, we're all part of a club. It's like,
well, there's a very limited number of people in it right now.
So
even if you've backed the project. You're not in the alpha.
This country club kind of style when it comes to this. I mean, maybe that'll keep certain people out, I guess. But the idea is if it's supposed to be social, and you're like you're changing what group you could possibly be social with, and the idea that advertisers could go in or big companies could buy a username and then go in and basically they could put their own ads in there too, couldn't they? Unless there's an exclusive policy about that too.
But you don't have to follow them. That's the key.
At $50 a pop, how many followers does Robert Scoble have in there?
I don't know. I'm just thinking about this. I mean, I guess that means you can't have a bunch of fake follower accounts following you, right? You're not gonna have like inflated numbers. You're gonna.
That's what I'm saying too.
It just definitely seems. I don't know. I don't want to pay $50 for this. I don't know if there's a bunch of value here when it comes to getting information, but I could see it being positive on the. It's almost like a verified account right away. You know somebody's willing to put up money to say something versus like a bunch of spam. You're probably gonna get less spam hopefully with this kind of thing.
All right, let's talk about the NeoGeo X. Finally got a ship date. Why are people so freaking excited about this thing, Iyaz?
Because the
NeoGeo
NeoGeo was awesome 20 years ago. I had one. I'm going to talk about this in a bit. But NeoGeo X Gold is coming December 6th. It was supposed to come out in Q2. Now, what what it costs is $200. Okay, it gets you three things.
And what is it?
Oh, the NeoGeo is a portable gaming console. I forget because a long time ago I knew what this was. I assumed everyone knew. We're talking about this early. But so $200 gets you a game console, a handheld device with a 4.3-inch screen with 20 games preloaded and an SD card slot so you can add more games. Then there's a charging station you get with it, which looks a lot like the original NeoGeo home console and lets you attach it to you attach your portable console to your TV. I'm really excited about this. I'm just like all like jumping over this. And you get a joystick if you ever played a NeoGeo in an arcade or the home. It had this giant joystick. It was a really interesting machine back in the day. 1990 is when it came out. And the big hook was they were perfect translations of the arcade games because the console cost $650, which is about $1,000 in today's money. And each game was $200.
Wow.
Because these massive cartridges were effectively the same ones that the arcades had. So you had unlimited amount of coins effectively when it came to this you had to have unlimited coins to buy this stuff. And of the 20 games, I think the standouts are Fatal Fury, Art of Fighting 2, and King of the Monsters. A lot of great fighting games on NeoGeo if you like that kind of that stuff.
I feel like you've never been so excited about anything on the show ever. I can feel your radiance.
At $200 though, I'm kind of put off by it, but
yeah.
I'm just excited that it's back.
It's the cost of one game back in the day.
Yeah, but today's money, $200 is nowhere near what that thing costs. A lot of people are excited because it's a retro console. Although you could probably do this for a lot less. You could probably run it on your iPhone.
You can do your own MAME cabinet.
You can do an emulator,
like
but it's not the same. It's SNK. Dan, do you have any fond memories of NeoGeo in the arcade? Because I used to play it all the time.
In the arcade, definitely. And I think my nostalgia is a little more tied to the Game Boy. But man, the NeoGeo in the arcade, absolutely. I think I lost countless quarters to that thing.
I just absolutely love this. I was lucky enough to have the home console. I don't know why my dad bought it for me, but he did. And so I got to play these things at home, and I'm telling you, the actual games must have been the size of like one of those books behind you, Tom. They were gigantic, but it was just so perfect of a translation. Because back then we had SNES and Genesis, and you'd play Street Fighter in the arcade, and you're like, this port is terrible. This is nothing close to the amount of frames you get. I don't think $200 for a retro console is going to make anybody buy it now.
Well, you're gonna buy it.
No, I'm not.
You're not.
I'm not paying $200 for this.
All of that,
I'm excited it exists.
You don't think it's worth $200?
$200? I wouldn't even buy the Ouya for $99. You think I'm gonna pay $200 for this thing? I could do this with my iPod Touch.
I don't know. You led me to believe that yes, you would.
I'm super excited, but there's no way I'm going to pay $200 for this. If it was $99, I probably would have.
Okay.
Maybe
I'm just
you
very
can
confused now.
Can we get your mom to buy one for you?
Sure, I will ask my mom to buy me a.
It'll be total nostalgia.
Absolutely, it's like, could you just buy this for me and leave it like at my
Christmas
house?
is coming up.
Yeah.
This is true. I have
Hear
a
that,
birthday
Mrs.
coming up.
Akhtar? You know what to put on his list now.
There you go, Mom. My birthday's coming
You
up.
can ask Santa.
All right. There's always people talking about the next version of the internet, doing research on internet protocols or RFCs, but this one caught my eye particularly because I feel like it's a very provocative way to address the criticism that ISPs have that, well, we need to make money off the internet, and that's why we need to prioritize traffic or provide our own video services that are prioritized above other video services. The National Science Foundation commissioned a group of researchers from 4 U.S. universities to design future internet protocols. And the problem they identified is that all of your choice as a consumer is at the edge, right? You can choose what websites you visit. You can choose what the application layer of the internet. But once you're in the network, you're in the network. So you choose Time Warner or Comcast or AT&T, that's it. You have whatever service they give you. They want to change that. They propose a new networking architecture that, one, encourages alternatives within the network. A little hard to wrap your head around, but your video could be delivered to you by a different company than is delivering your web browsing, all right? You would vote with your wallet, so you would choose which services you want to pay for, and you would know how good those services are. They say know what happened, so there would be transparency built in, so you would easily be able to tell the quality of the service you're getting from the different network architecture providers. The paper is called Choice as a Principle in Network Architecture. It's going to be presented by lead author Tillman Wolfe of UMass Amherst at the ACM SIGCOM 2012 conference, which is kicking off in Helsinki, Finland today. But the case study that they give is, let's say you're web browsing and your video service is poor. You could go in as part of this network architecture and say, oh, well, I'm buying my web service and my video service from AT&T. I'm going to buy my video service to be streamed direct from Akamai. They would have to change network protocols. So this is a very long-term revision of the internet. But it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. But imagine if instead of buying an ISP, you bought multiple ISPs or an ISP package. And it's not violating net neutrality because they're not saying, well, we're going to deliver Netflix differently from Hulu. They're just saying if it's video traffic on the internet, it's marked as video traffic and it's delivered by this service.
Now, the paper's a little light on details. I think they called it choice nets.
Well, this is an abstract, right? The actual paper is going to be presented in Helsinki.
I think
right?
there's a two-page thing that's out there as a PDF, and I was reading it. And I mean, a lot of the things that they're talking about, I know a lot of nerds are going to be like, yeah, you can do that with your router right now. You can have QoS and you can do this thing. And the paper's trying to make it easier for the end consumer to go, look, I want video to be streamed, or I want Skype at a premium, or I want this to come in earlier. It just feels like it just reminds me of Dial, where Dial is that mobile television, not a network, but service that sends live television to a phone using a separate network. So effectively, that's not the same thing. This would be one network that's subdivided.
This is the internet. They're saying we would change the internet, and that's why it's so hard to wrap your head around, right? Because we think of the internet like, no, well, it's Hypertext Transport Protocol, right? Well, it doesn't have to be. It can be all kinds of different protocols. And what they're saying is we could have different protocols provided by different services. And again, it doesn't work at all like that right now because all of your protocols, whether it's TCP IP into your computer and all your choices at the edge.
So it's a network within and again,
there are huge amounts of questions about how this is going to work, and they haven't answered all those yet. This is kind of the beginning of the process.
Yeah, I mean, when I was reading it again, because I was trying to figure out how does it work. It's almost like, okay, you have cable TV and you have internet. It's like, no, it's one network that's subdivided. I mean, it would be interesting to see if that worked at all. Although I wouldn't see ISPs getting on board with this idea of sharing a pipe.
But you wouldn't be sharing a pipe, right? It'd be as if you could subscribe to, if I understand it right, it'd be as if you subscribe to 3 or 4 ISPs at the same time, right?
But how do you get the connection to your house?
Well, that is one of those questions.
I must read this paper.
Yeah, that you would have to figure. There's a big complicated graphic in there that probably answers this, but it's a little beyond my ability to explain it just based on that.
The arrows make sense.
Yeah, see?
Just look at the illustration here. This makes perfect sense.
The dotted lines lead to my confusion, and there's a data plan.
Well, I mean, I guess so you'd pay all of your providers less, which would be less strain on their network because you assume that people like us would be switching between them. So AT&T gets less of my money, for example, but I'm also contributing to less of their strain, which could free it up for everybody.
Bear, one of our sysadmins in the chat room, says ISPs already do this with layer 2 routers. So again, I'm just at the edges of understanding based on this summary that they've put out, but I feel like it's a way of constructing the internet so they can't stop you from choosing, which choice is good, right? All right, let's move on to Nokia and how they're going to fight Microsoft. Wait, I thought Nokia and Microsoft were friends. What's going on with this?
The Verge had a piece up by Vlad Savov, who was on just, I think, Friday. Savov? Yeah. See, I just pronounced it a different way. He wondered how I could pronounce it differently, and I did. So they have a piece wondering if Nokia is going to become collateral damage in Microsoft's battle with Apple, referring to Microsoft's producing its own hardware for its Surface line without Nokia. Remember, Nokia is its hardware buddy, Microsoft's buddy when it comes to Windows Phone. And Nokia had mentioned a bunch of times that they were working on tablets, and it looked like they were spending time on a Windows 8 tablet as well. The question comes up, why did Microsoft not partner with Nokia? Now, James Kendrick at ZDNet says it's merely a branding issue, saying Nokia probably wants their logo on these devices, and Microsoft doesn't want to share that. They want to show that they are making real products. And Vlad said that he figured that it was the dire financial straits in which Nokia finds itself that actually makes this the case. What do you guys think? Why do you think Microsoft basically said to Nokia, yeah, we're not going to use you for our actual tablets?
Because they don't
I think that speculation sounds pretty dead on. I mean, we can only speculate, right? That's all we can do. But that speculation sounds about right. I mean, it's not like Nokia has a position of leverage within Microsoft. And Microsoft wouldn't want to brand something a Nokia tablet. They want it to be a Microsoft tablet, right?
But the idea that Microsoft would go into hardware in this kind of level, I mean, they have the Xbox and they have a lot of accessories,
right.
But this is a really different push where they could have just blessed another manufacturer, like maybe Nokia, maybe Samsung, maybe somebody else. But they're doing it on their own. And the other thing that was brought up in these articles is, what could Nokia do to stand out? Because the Surface looks like an incredible looking product. It's got a great design. It's got a lot of attention to details. So what would it take for another device or another company to beat the Surface when the Surface isn't even out yet?
Well, that's not just a question for Nokia. That's a question for every competitor, which is why we're so surprised that Microsoft is pushing this, because they usually bend over backwards to do whatever their vendors want because they want their money. But in this case, they're going against the tide, which is unusual for Microsoft. I think it's clear to me why Nokia isn't doing a tablet. Nokia can't do a tablet. They're focusing on phones. And I think it's clear to me that Microsoft is actually preferencing Nokia a little bit, saying, we're not going to do a phone. That's Nokia's deal. But Nokia can't really pull off a tablet right now, so we're going to do the Surface design. And maybe, in fact, they're doing it that way because that helps Nokia. They can then hand over their research to Nokia, who's a partner, and say, here's the stuff on the Surface. Now you can put your own Nokia front end on it, and we've done all the hard work for you.
Well, if Nokia can't make a tablet, why are they working on a tablet?
Well, I'm saying Nokia can't make a tablet. I don't mean they can't. They're incapable, but that's really hard for them right now. Phones they've got.
They can, they just shouldn't.
It's really, it's much more difficult for them to make in phones. That's all.
Nokia introduced a series of tablets pre-iPad. They were these larger devices, maybe about 6 inches, and people thought they were ridiculous. Who would carry this device? It was a little ahead of its time, and the idea that they couldn't make a Windows RT-based system, considering it's effectively the same parts, that kind of confuses me. Because if you're going to have an ARM-based Windows machine, Nokia already does that. It's just their phones. You just need a larger screen. And it just seems like Microsoft is basically burning bridges with its hardware partners. And I don't know why they want to do that. Because the reason why Windows is as popular as it is because it can be on any hardware. And when you start going, hey, guys, when you work with us, we're going to stab you in the back. That seems like a really bad business policy.
Well, they also know that their dominance in operating systems is not going to last in a mobile, right? So that makes sense to me. They're not making desktops and laptops. They're making tablets, and tablets is where they don't have the dominance. So it's easy to say to your partners like, yeah, we won't compete with you in the areas where you're benefiting us a lot, but you're not benefiting us much in tablets because nobody can make one that runs Windows that is competing with Apple. So we're going to leave the way. We're going to lead the way, not leave the way. Or as Feld puts it, Nokia's below the Surface.
Ooh.
Nice.
Drowning. Let's move on to the randomizer. Shall we?
Yes.
Randomizer.
Let's get random.
Disney's doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They want to build more realistic replica human faces Disney Research is at SIGGRAPH. That's where a lot of these kinds of stories are coming out. But the group presented 2 new facial capture technologies at the conference, one of which is designed to improve the way systems deal with facial hair. It can detect beards, good news for me and Dan, and Iyaz, stubble, and even eyebrows. But the algorithm can also determine what the skin underneath the hair looks like and then recreate it.
Now, in the video, the researchers actually show this working. This isn't just some pie in the sky idea.
Pie in the face.
Well, you could put a pie in the face of the animatronic. It looks pretty close. It's kind of eerily similar to the original person, and the idea that you don't have to cast somebody's face to do this. I mean, these are cameras watching somebody's face and picking up a lot of different things, which if you're watching the video right now, that's the animatronic head. That is not the real person's head. It's matching a lot of the audio that the person was stating in these like test sequences.
I don't get as much Uncanny Valley out of this either.
It's the eyes closed. I think that's what it's about. You can't see the dead eyes.
Disney has a department, like an Uncanny Valley department, right? They surely they're able to, like, the bureaucracy, like, kill that.
It's actually a ride. The Uncanny Valley.
Right.
This is cool technology, though. If you have a chance, go check out the Verge article on this and take a look at the video.
That's going to make the Hall of Presidents a lot more fun. I mean, it'll be faster, I guess.
They're going to have to dig up a lot of presidents.
More politicians. Well, I think you have to maybe find a lookalike
or
something. But there's a lot of really interesting uses for this. I would think, actually, I'm thinking about
like framing somebody.
There's
a video on closed circuit TV of you entering that less than savory establishment.
But it wasn't Disney animatronic?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't me. It was the one-armed Disney animatronic.
Let's move on and check if there's anything on the calendar.
There is.
Oh, good. Hooray.
Groupon earnings report is today. Groupon stock has had a bit of a rough time since it IPO'd last year. So, well, we'll find out soon enough. And the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 is due in the UK on August 16th.
Excellent for you, UK folks. Now let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
We have an email. Sarah, kick us off. What do we got?
David Main says, Dear TNT, I'm a huge fan of games on Steam to the point of repurchasing some older titles that I have perfectly good copies of on disc for the sheer convenience. Unfortunately, I doubt I would get non-gaming applications unless they alter their DRM model. Right now, I can't be logged into Steam on more than one machine at a time, which I find occasionally annoying, but I can accept it. However, I would not accept being unable to open my photo editing software on my laptop if I'm running Skyrim on my desktop. Now, perhaps they'll be able to do it right and not require you to be logged into and running Steam in order to open non-gaming applications, but I'm kind of doubting it.
That is a really good point.
Yeah, that would be extremely inconvenient.
They have to change that, right?
I would think for productivity software, it'd be a nightmare if you can't be offline. It's definitely, I can see why the games would be different. Another email from Victor. He says, Hey, TNT crew, I'm writing to you from my Atrix 4G using the docking station and a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse. Death of the PC, using tablets/phones for everything. I can see that. I really think Motorola and Asus have it right with their docks and ultra-portable laptop dock with a tablet/phone and a docking station. And the ability to remote into a virtual machine, I could work anywhere with minimal setup to schlep things around. What about when you need to run something processor intensive? That's when I would offload the process to the virtual machine. With this kind of setup, companies could keep all of their data on secure internal clouds and only refresh screens. Sounds like the mainframe era, right? Yes, it does. And IT could utilize that business model to manage costs and charge back based on project, for instance. Nightly hard drive backups for 50, 100, 10,000 desktops, Windows and virus system updates. No need. The data is on our servers.
Yeah, I read this email and I think, okay, so Motorola and Asus have done a good form factor, but I'm not seeing the execution of everything he's talking about here yet. But
it's early days when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's really early days. Finally, Steven writes in and says, I just wanted to comment on the Google death benefits story in 2 aspects I think deserve noting. First is that from an actuarial standpoint, this is probably a cheap benefit for Google to provide. Death at a young age is very rare. While Google does employ some people with decades of experience, including heroes like Vint Cerf, a huge proportion of them are young, unlikely to die while employed, and thus never likely to need this benefit. So the PR value in this benefit is enormous, even though its expected value is low. It doesn't make it a bad benefit to provide, however. The second point is that the low probability of unexpected death also makes planning for it unlikely for employees. So this could be a great safety net if the very worst befalls an employee. whenever you start talking about actuarial stuff, it always descends into really like morbid things,
Yeah.
about
What's the
people dying,
probability
but-
that we're all going to die?
Yeah, exactly. But it is a good
Yeah.
point.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's not a bad thing to do, but it's probably not maybe as expensive as you might think.
Well, also, if Google really expected a lot of its employees to die in accidents,
Yeah.
quickly and often,
That would be a problem on its own.
That would actually be the worst.
And that's why the
issue
Google
here.
skydivers were independent contractors. They weren't employees.
They did not get these benefits.
No, they didn't.
All right, well, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thanks for submitting stories in our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. We look at that every day. Well, every day we do a show anyway. I look at it every day, actually, to find out what stories you're into, and we take that into account when we make our lineup. Dan Patterson, thank you for joining us. Let folks know where they can find CoPoint and all the good coverage you guys are going to be doing.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. If you're interested, again, not in politics, I want to stress that, but if you're interested in seeing how events like political conventions or campaigns play out, particularly if you're interested in like data mining, both the Romney campaign and Obama campaign have been doing a really interesting job of sorting through all of your social data and using that for their Get Out the Vote initiatives. If you're interested in that, then you can follow us at copoint.com. There's a mailing list, and we're launching a site. In fact, the tool, I don't want this to be a plug. I'm just super excited about it. Sumall here, it's Dane and the former Squarespace team. Sumall is making the social resonance tool that's going to be live in a week or two that's going to help us like really zero in on where the conversations are happening around the campaign. And so we can figure out like, micro thoughts. And it's just really fascinating stuff. I'm very excited.
Awesome. Check it out, folks. And thank you for joining us. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. We will be back because Tuesday can't be missed. Justin Robert Young will be here. We'll see you then.
Yeah.